Welcome to the War Dossier, where wars become stories. Picture this. A European emperor in Paris decides to crown an Austrian archduke in Mexico, while the United States is torn apart by civil war. It sounds like satire, but it was a blueprint, and it ended with a firing squad at dawn. Stay with me as we follow the money, the myths, and the mistakes that turned debt into empire, and empire into a cautionary tale still echoing every Cinco de Mayo. Mexico, 1861. The gunsmoke of the Reform War is still hanging over the valleys. Towns are burned out, treasuries are empty, and the new president, Benito Juárez, a Zapotec lawyer who rose from orphan to head of state, faces a country exhausted and in arrears. The church has lost land, the old elites have lost power, and everybody has lost cash. Creditors in London, Madrid and Paris haven't. They want their silver back. Juárez pauses foreign debt payments for 2 years, triage for a nation bleeding out. To European chancelleries, it sounds like defiance. To Napoleon III of France, it sounds like opportunity. He sells it as bookkeeping. It's not. Behind the ledgers sits a bigger plan. Build a Latin Catholic counterweight to the rising Protestant United States. Plant a European monarch in Mexico City, wrap it in ceremony, and call it stability. If you're thinking, that's insane, hold that thought. We're sailing to Veracruz. December 1861. 3 flags catch the morning wind over the Gulf. Britain, Spain, France. Redcoats, Spanish Marines, French blue tunics step ashore. The tripartite expedition has a polite mission: secure debts, protect nationals, avoid politics. Within weeks, that story frays. British and Spanish officers realize the French aren't here for receipts. They're here for a crown. London wants no trouble with Washington. Madrid won't play junior partner. 2 flags go home. 1 remains. France marches inland with 6,000 men under General Charles de Laurences. Veterans with swagger, chasing a capital that seems one good road away. Across those roads waits General Ignacio Zaragoza and about 4,500 Mexicans, campesinos, militia, indigenous fighters, regulars in mismatched uniforms, digging shallow works on the slopes above Puebla. It's May 5th, 1862. Rain gathers over 2 hilltop forts, Loreto and Guadalupe. The French attack straight up the slopes 3 times. Artillery sputters, mud glues boots to ground. Mexican volleys cut into the blue lines, cavalry darts from the flanks, shouts roll like thunder. By afternoon, the impossible happens. A modern European army reels backward across the fields. Mexico wins. Cinco de Mayo is not Independence Day. It's something else, proof that we can outlast reputation. The victory buys time, pride, and a story that stiffens spines from village to village. It also buys Napoleon III a bruise to hide. He sends a second punch, bigger, colder, slower. Early 1863, General Élie Frédéric Faure lands with nearly 26,000 men, engineers, siege guns, supply trains. Zaragoza is gone, dead of illness, but his spirit sits on the hills. Faure surrounds Puebla and squeezes. 2 months of bombardment, hunger, disease. Water pails run under shell bursts, chapels become wards, relief attempts fail. In May, the city falls. The road to Mexico City is open. Juárez won't give the French a captured president. He folds up the government like a map and rides north toward Chihuahua, legitimacy on horseback. June 7th, 1863. French troops parade into the capital. Salon doors swing wide. Old conservatives toast the return of order. Priests bless processions. Behind the bunting sits an absence. The people were never asked. Enter Vienna. Archduke Ferdinand Maximilian of Habsburg, tall, cultured, liberal in temperament, second son forever in shadow. Napoleon's envoys arrive with flattery and forge petitions. Mexico chooses you. You will reconcile faith and progress, honour and modernity. Maximilian hesitates. His wife, Carlotta of Belgium, ambitious, brilliant, unbowed, leans forward. Europe promises bayonets. The stage promises destiny. He accepts a crown propped on foreign rifles. Maximilian steps into Mexico in 1864 like a contradiction in a white uniform. He abolishes peonage, limits child labour, pushes secular schools, talks science and merit. The poor hear hope. The old aristocracy hears betrayal. The church wants its old estates. He won't give them back. Liberals see a monarch in their house. Conservatives see a reformer on their throne. The only constant is French steel. In the plazas, empire looks convincing. French columns march with metronome precision. Imperial officers raise flags in Pacific ports. Courtiers stage ceremonies blending Habsburg pomp with Mexican colour. Newspapers in Paris purr about civilizing missions. But outside the arc of the boulevards, the land is not persuaded. Republican guerrillas are everywhere and nowhere. On ridgelines, behind maguey hedges, in ravines that swallow sound. They cut telegraph lines, ambush convoys, evaporate into blue dusk. Towns shelter them at night and call them cousins by day. The empire is a net full of wind. Across the Rio Grande, another war howls. The American Civil War keeps Washington's eyes inward. Perfect for Napoleon's gamble. Then April 1865, the guns fall silent at Appomattox. The United States exhales, looks south, and stares straight through the French tricolour to the Monroe Doctrine painted beneath. Troops mass on the border. Diplomats deliver warnings with iron in the throat. And weapons, Springfield rifles, cartridges, cash, start sliding into Republican hands. Watch the map change colour. Northern towns flip back to Juárez. Veteran trainers put drill into ragged ranks. Guerrillas become brigades. Imperial garrisons wake to find the hills around them blinking with muzzle flashes. Morale leaks out of French tents at night. Back in Paris, the emperor who dreamed of Latin grandeur now reads ledgers full of loss and letters full of grief. He needs prestige in Europe, not a quagmire in Mexico. The order goes out: withdraw. Maximilian hears that single word as a verdict. Friends beg him to go home. He refuses. He thinks of honour, the men who saluted his flag, the decrees he signed in good faith. Carlotta sails to Europe to plead. Audiences, petitions, palace corridors, doors close, promises shrink. She breaks under the strain. She will never return to him. By early 1867, the empire is almost paper. Maximilian gathers what remains in Querétaro: walls, a few thousand loyalists, 2 generals who would rather die beside him than live without him. The siege begins. Months of hunger. Night sorties that gain streets and lose them at dawn. Maximilian walks the trenches, gentle voice, blue eyes, a foreigner who learned names and shared rations. Respect grows in the mud. Supplies do not. Betrayal cracks the city gate. Republicans flood in. Maximilian is captured. Juárez, lawyer, patriot, survivor, faces a decision larger than one life. Europe pleads clemency. Monarchs who never asked Mexico's permission now ask for mercy. Juárez thinks in the grammar of sovereignty. Spare the symbol and you invite the next ship. He convenes a tribunal. June 19th, 1867, a hillside outside Querétaro. 3 men stand before a firing line: Maximilian, Tomas Mejia, Miguel Miramon. The emperor hands gold to the soldiers and asks them to aim true. "I forgive everyone," he says. The volley cracks. Dust lifts. A European empire in the Americas ends not with a treaty, but with smoke curling over dry grass. Juárez rides back into Mexico City as president, not prisoner. France folds the tricolour and boards ships. Napoleon III carries a quiet humiliation home to Paris that will shadow him to Sedan. Carlotta lives out her long, haunted decades in European palaces, a queen of a country that rejected her, a widow of a man who refused to run. What did the war decide? On a map, a restored republic. In memory, a parable. Cinco de Mayo becomes a folk thunderclap, courage against the odds, while Independence Day stays September the 16th, the cry of Hidalgo echoing from another century. In politics, a line drawn in bright paint. Mexico will not be governed by foreign handwriting. In strategy, a reminder that occupation cannot invent legitimacy. In the quiet rooms where deals get made, a warning: never confuse paper consent with popular will. And Maximilian, he is the tragedy inside the farce, a reformer wearing a crown handed to him by men who loathed reform, a European romantic arriving with laws the poor needed and a title the nation rejected. He was too liberal for his backers, too royal for his skeptics, and too late for his dream. If you look closely, you can still see the war's fingerprints in the pride of Puebla's hills. In the word intervention, which now tastes bitter in Mexican mouths. In the way nations talk softly about debt and loudly about sovereignty. In the old photographs of a young emperor whose uniform stayed spotless while his boots learned dust. This is the part where history clears its throat and offers its invoice. Napoleon III tried to game timing, distance, and distraction. He underestimated stubbornness, geography, and the velocity of American recovery. He treated a nation as a stage and discovered it was a country. He thought bayonets could plant roots. They couldn't. Mexico's message was simple and paid in blood. Legitimacy is not imported. It is earned. Here at the War Dossier, we turn campaigns into stories, and stories into questions that matter now. If this episode gave you a clearer lens on the Franco-Mexican War, tap like so more people find unsanitized history. Hit subscribe and the bell to join our field briefings as they drop. I want to hear your verdict in the comments. Should Juárez have spared Maximilian, or did Mexico need that final, brutal line in the sand? If you've got a favourite moment or source, leave it below. Our comment section is the after-action report for this channel, and your notes shape what we cover next. Share this with a friend who still thinks Cinco de Mayo is Mexico's Independence Day, and then keep the momentum going. Watch next, how the British Empire took India, the East India Company's corporate conquest. It's the perfect companion to today's story: debt, deals, and bayonets turning into power. Thanks for marching with us. You're part of the dossier now. Let's keep reading the fine print of history together.